Today, we are not just brushing over the headlines. We are digging into how this Chargers roster is actually being built. The post-draft class includes Isaiah World, an injured tackle who could turn into a quiet steal. There is also a bold idea involving a young edge rusher that could raise the ceiling of this entire defense. The secondary still needs a veteran who can step in right away, and Brenen Thompson brings the kind of speed that can blow coverage wide open. If you really live and breathe the Bolts, subscribe right now because today is about protecting Herbert, attacking weaknesses, and refusing to think small. What stands out to me about this undrafted class is not just one interesting name on paper. It is the intention behind the whole thing. The Chargers came out of the 2026 draft with trades, extra picks, and depth across several spots. But the most aggressive part might be exactly where a lot of people stop paying attention after Saturday. Nadeem Tucker arrives already knowing Chris O'Leary from Western Michigan, and that matters because a new coordinator does not just want starters. He wants players who understand the language, the practice habits, the details, and the adjustments. Lander Barton comes in with the pedigree to push for a role as an inside linebacker next to Junior Colson. So far, fine. That is roster building. But Isaiah World is a different kind of bet. And this bet feels like it came right out of the war room. Not because he is going to walk into 2026 and magically solve right tackle or left tackle. He tore his ACL in the college football playoff. So the most natural path is a year built around development, recovery, and patience. But look at the profile that fell into Los Angeles' lap. 6'5", 323 pounds, 34.5-inch arms, explosiveness out of his stance, long experience, 4 years at Nevada and another season at Oregon. Nick Baumgardner of The Athletic called World the best fit from the Chargers' undrafted class and described his traits like a top 100 player. That is not a little compliment for someone who went through the entire draft without hearing his name called. Now this is where the fan base has to stay sharp. There is a reason he did not get drafted. A serious injury, inconsistent technique, and footwork that still needs real work. Nobody is trying to sell a fairy tale here. But when a tackle with that kind of size and those physical tools allows only 11 pressures and 1 sack on 380 pass-blocking snaps at Oregon, according to Pro Football Focus, you do not toss that aside like it means nothing. You put him in the right shop. And that shop has Jim Harbaugh and Butch Barry. That is the entire point. Harbaugh loves offensive line projects with size, power, and room to grow. Barry comes in with pressure too, because the 2026 line is going to be a very different conversation from what Los Angeles had to survive in 2025. Travis Burke, the 4th-round pick, already steps into the battle with Trey Pipkins III for the swing tackle spot. World may stay behind the curtain for a while, but he does not disappear from the story. He could become that quiet investment that makes everybody ask a year later how Los Angeles got him for free. Now the room changes. We go from a hidden offensive line project to a conversation that, if it ever gains real traction, makes the AFC look at Los Angeles differently. Kayvon Thibodeaux to the Chargers. Just putting that name next to Jim Harbaugh already creates noise, because this is not a small idea. This is not a depth detail. This is not some camp body type of move. This is a market possibility with a real defensive identity attached to it. The logic starts in New York. The Giants would be loaded on the edge, with Brian Burns already locked into a big contract and Abdul Carter rising too fast to be treated like a secondary piece. Then Thibodeaux, with a $14.75 million 50-year option, becomes an expensive question. And when a roster gets rich at edge and tight against the cap, somebody around the league starts making calls. That is how deals are born. Not from feelings, from pressure. The proposal on the table is simple. Chargers get Thibodeaux, Giants get a 2027 3rd-round pick. And I know some of the fan base will look at that and say, a 3rd-rounder for a former top 5 pick? Do it yesterday. But slow down, because on the other side, if John Harbaugh is really making that decision, Jim is not getting a family discount. If anything, it could go the other way. That kind of negotiation between brothers becomes chess with the cameras on. One wants to strengthen his own project. The other does not want to be remembered as the guy who handed a premium pass rusher to Los Angeles for a light price. But that is exactly why the Chargers have to be alert. Khalil Mack is closer to the end than the beginning. Joey Bosa is no longer part of the equation. Herbert is in the prime window of his career. The offense can have more speed, more protection, and more design. But if you want to truly fight in January, you need a defense that closes games by taking the air out of the opposing quarterback. Thibodeaux is 26 years old. He has explosion, motor, history with Herbert at Oregon, and roots in Southern California. That local angle does not win games by itself, but it changes the energy, the locker room, and the story. If the 2025 shoulder injury made the price even a little less crazy, Los Angeles has to investigate. Because sometimes the difference between a good team and a feared team is one aggressive phone call made before everybody else admits the door is open. And now we get to the kind of topic that does not explode online like an edge trade, but still decides football games. Cornerback. Because the Chargers had a draft full of movement. They traded down, stacked capital, added offensive linemen, and tried to protect the roster from that old injury nightmare this fan base is tired of watching. But one spot is still yelling from the back of the room. Benjamin St-Juste left for the Green Bay Packers, and his snaps do not simply vanish. Somebody has to step into that role. That is why Rasul Douglas feels like one of those calls Joe Hortiz cannot treat like ordinary paperwork. Douglas is 31, yes, and I know how the league usually talks about older corners, like every veteran defensive back is one snap away from falling off a cliff. But not every player ages the same way. Not every corner depends on the exact same kind of burst. And Douglas has already proven in more than one place that he can learn a system, adjust, and still play useful football. He did it in Green Bay. He kept it going in Buffalo after the 2023 trade. He played in Miami in 2025, and now he is available. The point is not signing a name just to sell jerseys. The point is protecting the structure. Right now, the room has Tarheeb Still, Cam Hart, Dante Jackson, De'Ann Leonard, Nico Reed, and Eric Rodgers. I like parts of that group. Still and Hart have room to grow. Dante Jackson brings experience. But if one of the top three goes down, the plan gets thin way too quickly. Leonard, Reed, and Rodgers still do not have enough defensive reps for you to sleep comfortably while imagining Mahomes, Burrow, or any smart offense pointing at them every single week. And here is the behind-the-scenes angle this fan base should keep pushing. If St-Juste revived his career in this environment, why could Douglas not give you an efficient version in that same setup? A projected one-year deal around $4 million does not crush the budget for a team trying to compete. That buys stability, recognition, length in the rotation, and presence on a heavy Sunday. So I want to hear the stands on this one. Would you spend that money on Rasul Douglas right now? Or would you let the young guys figure it out on the field? Because to me, ambition shows up in the smaller signings too. Sometimes the move that saves your season is not the loudest one. It is the one that keeps the wound from opening. Now, if the defense needs smart patches, the offense needs poison. And Brenen Thompson is exactly the kind of pick that can look small if you only stare at the round, but annoys every defensive coordinator who respects real speed. 4th round, Mississippi State. A 4.26 in the 40, the fastest offensive player at the Combine, according to ESPN's Matt Miller. That is not just a decoration on a scouting report. That changes the geometry of the field. The detail that gets me most excited is that Thompson does not arrive as some raw athlete fantasy who only runs in a straight line. In 2025, in his only year at Mississippi State, he caught 57 passes for 1,054 yards and 6 touchdowns. He led the SEC in receiving yards. The SEC, Chargers fans. That was not hidden production against a soft schedule. He had to leave Texas, went through Oklahoma without finding the role he wanted, and when he finally got real volume, he exploded. There is hunger there. There is a player who knows what it feels like to be a promise, to wait, to fight through it, to change scenery, and then finally make noise. And for the Chargers, that profile has value beyond the deep target. Ladd McConkey and Trey Harris can work with more comfort when the safety has to respect the top of the field. Quentin Johnston, heading into the final year of his rookie deal, also gets a more honest environment to show whether he can turn flashes into consistency. Herbert does not need an offense where every throw has to feel like surgery through a tight window. He needs fear on the other side. Fear of the wrong step. Fear of the wrong coverage. Fear of that one snap where Thompson gets clean and suddenly the play is already over your head. Of course, the size matters. 5'9", 170 pounds. The plan cannot be to throw him into traffic like he is a big possession receiver. It has to be motion, space, vertical routes, design touches, patience, and timing. But if the coaching staff gets the rhythm right, he can unlock a part of the offense that has been stuck for too long. And now I want the community's answer. Is Thompson an early impact player, or is this more of a season-long development project? Because I look at this pick and I see a message. The Chargers are not just trying to fill out the roster. They want speed that forces the defense to back up before Herbert even raises his arm. At the end of the day, all of this points to the same demand. The Chargers cannot build 2026 like health, luck, and Justin Herbert's arm are supposed to solve everything. Isaiah World is patience with a high ceiling. Thibodeaux would be a major power swing if that door really opens. Rasul Douglas is maturity so the secondary does not become a weekly target. Brenen Thompson is speed that can force respect downfield. This is the kind of offseason that separates talk from real ambition. So hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications, because Los Angeles is not building just to show up, they are building to attack.